There we go.
All right. Well, I'm accepting the recording. Fantastic. So welcome to our bi-monthly builders call that happens the first and third Tuesdays of the month. As we get started and jump in this morning, we have a guest I'm super excited to have on the call today. And just want to reset some context for this call. We have it on the first and third week cadence so that the larger organization
I'm on the building call with Casey.
Can collaborate and work together. And then in the second and fourth weeks, those of you that are growing and building and scaling your own groups, we know have communication and things set up within the structure of how you support and grow to be able to do that. So this call is welcome to anyone that wants to collaborate and plug in and really look at not just the principles and habits, however, learn from the stories of people that are out there doing in some instances the things that you want to do and haven't yet done and created. In other instances are right smack dab in the middle of a journey and maybe having a shared experience. And for those that are like light years ahead of where you may be at, because it's just like in sport, when you put yourself in the playing arena with somebody who is quantum leaps and bounds of where you're at, you get better faster. And so that is really the reason why we come together on this call. As we start the call this morning, I'm just have you grab something to write on and something to write with. And I want you to write this down. I want to walk away from today's call with and finish that sentence. I want to walk away from today's call with and finish the sentence. I definitely have a strong perspective that where we choose to spend our time is important. And if we go into where we invest time in the absence of intention, it's rare that we walk away with something really valuable. And when we go into places where we invest time with a really clear intention, we always get what we're looking for and create that. And so one of the things about creating results in life and business is being intentional versus going through the motions or just doing things, but being mentally checked out and, in another place and time versus being fully present to be able to maximize and really powerfully create intentionally in a space and time. And so for today's call, sometimes we set these up as topics, other times they're interviews with questions and answers on specific topics. And so for those of you that grabbed something to write on and something to write with and finish that sentence, I want to walk away from today's call with, please take the time to put how you finish that sentence in the chat box below. I don't care, what it is that you wrote. However, I think it's important from a perspective of leadership to be able to make sure and serve the needs of people. And I know better than to guess. So, it's that whole Mark Twain saying that I can help anybody get what it is that they want. I just cannot find anyone that knows what they actually want. So for those I know, that's not this group. So as you put in the chat box, I want to walk away from today's call with. I'll look forward to seeing those notes in the chat so that we can wind them into the conversation today. So I'm really excited for those of you that I see, there may be a new face here or there on the call today, and that I may be meeting you for the first time. My name is Casey Council Jiha. I am the wife to Rick Jiha, and for EmpireBuilders.pro, which you are all a part of. We serve and service an organization of close to 3,000 agents that are literally spread all over the world. The majority of them here in North America, however, a couple hundred in Spain and some in Mexico and, other places here and there. And so the purpose, that we are very committed to is to improving the lives and businesses of all we have the opportunity to be in relationship with. That is really our objective. And so we are here to support you in growing and developing and creating what it is that you want to create, knowing that everybody defines success in their very own unique ways. And what success looks like to me is not going to be what it looks like to you. It's like a fingerprint that's very unique to each person. So I think it's really important when you come into a call like this, if you're doing like the future version of you, and what that next level of success is for you and how you define that both personally and professionally and what that really means, that it's important to have that kind of clarity. And then for the people that you work with, that are a part of your journey that they know that, so that they know how to best support and work with you based on the things that are most important to you. So today we have an opportunity to have someone on the call that I have not known for that long, actually. However, what I love about her is she has a zest for life and she has internal drive to mastery. Like, that's my experience of this woman. And she likes to have fun along the way. She's definitely about helping people and making a difference. Some fun facts about her is that she's been featured in Real Estate Producers Magazine as a top producer. She's been accepted to the EXP Luxury Division, and she's been in the top 1% of individual sales for the last 2 years with in Oklahoma, where she is a real estate agent. And so, Cindy, I want to welcome you on the call today. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you, Casey.
All right. Now, I know you've got, we're going to jump into your quick story. I know you've got 5 years under your belt in the real estate industry. However, tell us a little bit about what you did before real estate and how that became a launching pad for you getting into real estate.
Sure. So, I went right out of college to find my career in the fashion industry, and I sort of did that in a backwards way, but I ended up contracting with several different companies where I was a vendor, a vendor of Costco, which is the second largest retailer in the world. I didn't even really know what I was getting into, but I ended up being able to travel internationally for almost 20 years. Managing a lot of their apparel that came and went to different countries. So it ended up being really one of the best growing experiences. And it just came to the point where I could not sustain the travel and lifestyle that it demanded to raise my family and all of that. So I got my real estate license just to supplement my income in case I had to change a pace in career while I raised the family. And lo and behold, one thing that I learned, which I think I've talked to you about, Casey, is it's just learning about how to create a business. It doesn't really matter the widget. I always say that it's all widgets. So I feel like once I've figured out that now instead of selling socks and underwear, I was selling houses, or selling the value that we have to our other agents, then the light bulb kind of went on.
I love that. I always say that anybody that's created success in one area of their life can go and create it in another area of their life if they realize that success leaves clues and there's duplicatable skill sets to anything that someone's been successful at. So it's like, yes, you were successful in a totally different industry. However, what's made you successful there has also made you successful here in a different widget lane. So I love that. Okay, so 5 years in the industry. How long have you been with EXP?
Since almost 2 years. So it was August of 2021. And I had looked at it several years earlier, probably much like a lot of us. And, it didn't seem like the right fit, but what I've now learned is it wasn't the right people to partner with. And so the second that I talked with Will and Decatur and Joseph, and Will can tell you, like, there was no hesitation. I just knew it.
I love that. I always say business travels at the speed of trust, and it's based on relationships. So that is, people buy people before they buy anything else. And it's the greatest thing ever, because we get to influence people based on our authenticity and how we connect with people. And obviously Will and Decatur are very clear on who they are as humans and as business people. And they have, a vibe that is like, oh yeah, well, what are you guys up to? And I would love to be a part of that. And who you work with matters for sure. So, okay. So what was the catalyst then for you, aside from them? What was the catalyst for you from a business perspective, right? Because at that point you've been in the industry, and I love that you started off with it as something that's supplemental and then quickly moved into it as your primary business. And so there was that you're about your 3-year mark in the industry, and what had you willing to uproot? You know, I always say that a lot of times based on people's natural behavioral styles, there's a very small, like less than 10% of people like change. Because most people are freaked out about what they're losing or leaving behind, or they're freaked out about the unknown, or they're freaked out about having to become better or bigger versions of themselves than they are right now today. Or even if they're completely miserable, it's like, well, I know how to be completely miserable and still survive. Why would I change that? So however, here you are, you're like 3 years in. And tell us about what happened for you as an agent that's only been in the industry 3 years, that's willing to uproot where you're doing your business and take your business somewhere else.
So I think so the 2 years prior, I had done a very good volume and I was exhausted. And I think that played a big role because I really was not even looking to make a change. I just knew I had to adjust something, but I was looking to adjust it in the way that I was doing my business at the brokerage I was at. And I was just having a challenge figuring out how to do that. I am one that's not really afraid of change. And so I'm more afraid of what I would be missing. And so I think that's where, as a business owner, I saw the opportunity for the stocks, because I've been self-employed my entire career. And that is something that self-employed people are not good at. Even though I have a twin sister that's a financial advisor. But so I saw the value in that. And then I also saw the value in the long-term ability to shift my business from putting all the work on myself to letting the business work for me in the option of the revenue share. So I saw both of those opportunities because you can only do so much for so long, and then you will either burn out or you will not have the capability. You have to think of other ways to recreate yourself and duplicate yourself. And that was the perfect form for me.
I love that. So you're 3 years in the business, you're exhausted, and you start thinking like, man, number one, how am I going to maintain this? Number two, how am I going to grow it? And then number three, what is there actually going to be for me on the other side based on what I'm doing? So enter Decatur and Will, who, I mean, hello, if you're in a room with Decatur and Will, you're pretty much going to buy into whatever they're doing, because how could you not? I mean, look at them. They exude all of, the juiciness of life, right? And the fun and the success and the, all of that. Yet as a business person looking at your business and going, okay, I think it's really important for people on this call, when you're looking at growing and building an organization and recruiting and attraction, to know what makes people tick. What makes Cindy tick, if you were listening, is that she is not afraid of change as much as she's afraid of missing out, fear of loss. So if there's one thing you want to start thinking about based on this real life example, is how do you create a picture of fear of loss? How do you create a conversation of fear of loss for an agent in their business as it relates to the future of their business, right? Very important thing. So, Cindy, you talk about the, stock and revenue share and, getting your business to work for you. And here's the different thing. Like, there's a lot of real estate agents that are entrepreneurs that are not business people. I'm going to say that again. There's a lot of real estate agents that are entrepreneurs that are not business people. What does that mean? Well, entrepreneurship is the freedom, the flexibility, the possibility that comes from, having your side gig as a real estate agent. To some people have real estate as their full-time gig, and they treat it like a side gig because they don't employ the disciplines, the structures, the things to be successful as a real estate agent. It's more of like casual and like a hobby. And then they hope, to see success in it. And then there's the agents that are entrepreneurs and business people. And so a lot of times, I always go from the perspective of people don't know what they don't know. And our job is to influence the way that people think, literally like teach people how to think in a different way than they may be thinking right now today. When you influence someone's thinking, that the person that creates the most influence via thinking is going to be the person that influences the relationship. So what are the things to ask? What are the conversations to be in? What are the, What are the different things that can influence someone's thinking? And, that could be to another real estate agent that's 3 years in the business, like you were, Cindy, at that point, which could be something as simple as, why did you get into real estate? And a lot of people, whatever that answer is for the freedom, flexibility of entrepreneurship. And then a great next question is, do you consider yourself more an entrepreneur, or do you consider yourself a business person? There's a big difference. And, if you're in a dialogue with someone, well, like, what do you mean? If I'm an entrepreneur, I am a business person. Well, not necessarily, because a business person's asking a different set of questions than an entrepreneur. Well, like what? Oh, like, how do we sustain this growth? How do we create more growth? How do I get better quality of life without compromising the amount of business I'm doing? How do I maximize the return on my time, energy, and effort? How do I create returns that are going to happen independently of my own time, energy, and effort? These are questions that business people ask themselves. Are those questions that you're asking yourself? And so I love that in your story, Cindy, because obviously you're a business person. So you were already thinking those things. And then when the people with the influence show up, even though you knew about EXP before, and just for whatever reason, like it takes the human connection to connect to the vehicle, right? Because you knew about the vehicle of EXP, but you didn't make the connection. It takes the human to make the connection to the vehicle, right? So you have the human connection then, and this is the anatomy of recruiting and attraction for everyone that's listening and taking notes, is taking that human connection and then, transferring that and building deeper connection into the vehicle and what that can mean. So, okay. So you've been here now 2 years, 2 years, Cindy. And for those of you, there's a difference, that may be newer here, the difference between FLAs, FLQAs. So FLAs are total number of people that you have personally recruited or attracted. And then FLQAs would be the number of people that are active, meaning they have collected at least 5,000 in commissions from EXP within the last 6 months, making them a first level qualified active. So you have 15 people that are FLAs that you've personally recruited in the last 2 years. 8 of those are FLQAs, which is amazing. And you have an organization of 60 agents that spans into 2 different states. So what I would love you to talk about is, you're in the top 1% of producing agents in your market, which means you are busy selling real estate. And in the busyness of selling real estate, I would love for you to talk about how you have built this organization, which is an incredible organization, and, over a relatively short period of time, and what that's looked like and what you've learned as you've done it.
Sure. Well, and I'm just going to start out by saying I don't have it figured out because especially in our market, since it's a smaller market, I still have the pressure on myself to keep producing, because I feel like, to be relevant as a great real estate agent, that I need to keep producing high numbers so that other high producers will look at me and not just say, oh, she's a recruiter and she does real estate when she has time. I want to be looked at as a really good real estate agent, and then I attract the other really good real estate agents. So I do not have it figured out, and it is definitely a balance. But what I would say is that really has been our greatest motivator. Is in our office, we say we want to be really great real estate agents to attract other agents. And a lot of it has been very organic. But also one of the key factors is, and Will taught me this, is to find your other soldiers. So I have located, or is it generals? I don't know. It's one of the. So Will's always telling me, find the other people who are like you and who have like-minded visions and goals and who are at your level, and then pour into those people. And that's what him and Joseph Indicator have done to us. So again, it's all duplicatable. So I would say that that has been the biggest factor in our growth so quickly, is finding those few key people who are like-minded, who have the same vision and goals, and who understand, the strategy that we have to attract other agents. So the second thing I would say that we did to grow really quickly is to become really loud in our market of real estate agents. So by becoming really loud, we have done a ton of networking, which my husband is now understanding, because he was like, why do you always do so many happy hours? So to be really good at networking, to get involved in the community, and to also offer value to agents that aren't our agents yet. So to make so many friends in the real estate industry that other agents are becoming curious as to why are you doing this for other agents when they're not even at your office. So Will has taught us how to have events. Some have been great, some have not been great. It's been a huge learning process, but it has become so fulfilling to do that. And you wouldn't believe how many agents we have attracted just based on those events of, sometimes we do talk about EXP, sometimes we don't talk about EXP, but it's just the giving attitude, and so many agents are attracted to that. So
I love that. Yeah, you said a couple of things that I want to highlight. You said you don't have it figured out. However, there's some things you very clearly have figured out, which is number one, lead by example. So be the kind of agent that you'd want to attract, which is an agent that's active, that is producing in the marketplace, and that when someone goes, how's my business gonna, grow by joining and working together with you, you have a business that is expressing that in the market. So that's a huge, that's one of the reasons why 6 years in, Rick still does so much real estate sales himself and within the team, so that there's that congruency, right? Because that is, that's really powerful. The second thing, in saying that you don't have it all figured out, means that you have a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. Because someone that says I don't have it all figured out is constantly looking how to learn, grow, change, improve. And you evidence that by virtue of the fact of what you've said around creating events where you're there to contribute and bring value to the community of real estate and the relationships, investing in those and giving before asking. And in some cases, not asking at all, yet that influence and that paying it forward first to give that and create that, then you mentioned, has been some of the, key things that have helped on the attraction side. So, I think we sometimes can learn more from failures than we do from successes. So if you were to say, in your 2 years, like the biggest, and you don't need to share in details what it might be. However, the biggest thing that you would perceive as a failure during the 2 years, and more importantly, the thing that you learned from that you took moving forward, what would that be?
I would say something that every single person on this call has done is trying to take on influencing or attracting or recruiting agents yourself, especially at first. And, I know that everybody in leadership says, use us as your third party validation. Well, until you totally suck at not using you guys, you won't understand the value of that. And I've just recently stepped into the role of being the person who another agent is using to validate. And it's now I see the whole picture. So I think if I had learned that quicker, I would have definitely gotten some agents that I didn't get. But also in that conversation of using somebody else to validate EXP or validate the value that you can give them, you have to really listen to what the agent is saying as well. So I would say not listening and then not using the resources and the advice and the coaching that, you know, other EXP influencers have given, as far as this is the system that works and there's a reason why. So let's do it this way.
I love that. And, you know, it's not until we have a firsthand experience of anything that we really get it. So, you know, it can make sense in the concept, and, you know, you can hear it for a long, long time from many different people. However, until you actually have the firsthand experience, it's impossible to wrap your hands, you know, around the actual value. And in this context of what you're talking about, and using and working not alone, however, like very closely working hands-on with people that you're in business with, that are there to support you in growing and building the business, is that you get a collective influence versus an individual influence. And I know there's a lot of people that are lone rangers, particularly that come into this industry, because you have to be self-motivated of sorts, or you don't make it in the industry, you know, longer than a hot minute. And with that, you know, being a lone ranger when it comes to being a self-starter and self-motivated is great. However, when it comes to building and growing and scaling an organization around attraction and recruiting, it's the kiss of death, because you minimize your resources and your impact to make it to being about yourself versus being about a collective whole and what's actually possible. And the collective whole is always going to have more influence on a prospect than an individual will ever have. Same is true for me with my prospects. Like, you could look at me or Rick and go, oh, well, you guys have been with the company for 6 years, and, you know, look what you've built and created. And every time you tell your story, that's enough. And it's like enough to influence someone. Okay, it is a piece of it. However, it is never as effective as if we include Brent or Gene, or other people in our organization that we're in business with, because validation crosses through every single aspect, and utilizing it or not utilizing it is going to directly impact results or lack thereof, you know, in as much as how someone grows. So I know you have a hard stop at the bottom of the hour because you've got an appointment that you're running into. However, if there was one thing that you would like to leave with this group of people today, what would that be?
I think that would really be to have confidence in not only yourself, but the model and the system and the company. And there are always times that each one of those categories will waver. But I think if you collectively work on growing your confidence within yourself, within your skills, within you know, your business, and then, you know, coupling that with the confidence of your team, what they have in you, and then the confidence that you can have in the company of the mindset and the values. And I just, it was the end of December when we had our new ICA came out, and, you know, people were kind of going crazy on Workplace, like talking about different things. When Glenn got on and explained his vision again and just talked through it, you know, that just made me reassured with the company that it's all for a reason, and it's all in good hands. So that, which I've been in part of brokerages that have not been that way. So I think having the confidence in yourself and your organization, and then ultimately in our company, is something that I hope all of you will find.
I love that. And that you mentioned something really important, that confidence doesn't come by accident, that confidence comes by plugging in. So as it relates to the confidence in the company, how plugged in are you with the company in those conversations? And if you're not, or if you're waiting to hear about things through Workplace or through, you know, Facebook, God forbid, and whatever that narrative or is that's being out there, well, shame on me and shame on you. I shouldn't say that, shame on you. Shame on me if that's my approach, right? Versus, oh, I'm going to get myself to the, you know, the events that are put on by the company and the events that are put on by my organization. And I'm going to continue to fuel my own personal belief as a result, and be willing to invest the time and invest the money to do that, because I know that as my belief and confidence goes up in those things, so does my personal posture and confidence. And then as a human being, the posture and confidence, like what's my routine? I'm out walking now, an hour in the mornings, and I'm strategically listening to a different book on tape, going one through the next to get my mind right. Like to get my mind in a place of how am I building the future version of Casey that hasn't yet created what she's going to create, because she hasn't shown up as that person yet. Right. So that's where we build our own self-confidence in the ways that we're willing to invest in ourselves and those beliefs. So Cindy, thank you so much for being a team player and for being willing to be transparent. I love your humility. A lot of people think humility is putting yourself down to put someone else up. And that's not how I look at humility at all. I look at humility as being willing to, take the highs, take the lows, be transparent with them, realize like, I am not my results. I am who I am. And my results are a feedback mechanism always. And then the ability to be able to learn and grow from those things. So I really value that in you. And thank you so much for being willing to share with us today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the invitation, and everybody hang on to every word Casey says. She's amazing.
I love you so much. Okay.
All
Well, we've
right.
got some questions that came up in the chat. Oh, go ahead, Will.
No, I was just gonna say thanks. Like I am super appreciative to this woman. She a lot of the stuff she said, I remember day one. And when we had that conversation it clicked instantly. She saw it instantly. And it's been just uphill since then.
Yep,
You
guys
are my rock, Will. Thank you.
Love that. Okay. So we have a couple of questions in the chat. So Sherry Mason put in with the next step to grow my business, I want to grow intentional instead of the accidental approach I've been on. So my question for you, Sherry, would be, what is your intention? So could be rhetorical, or it could be, specific. Number one, what is the intention? Number two, what is the structure that you put in place to execute that intention? And number three, what is the time frame that you have given yourself to do that? And are those things all aligned? That's always the check-in. What is my intention? Like, where is it that I'm actually going? What is the structure that I have in place to make sure that happens? So structure could be the amount of time that I'm, focused on attraction. What am I specifically doing during that time? I'm not watching videos. I'm not on calls. I'm in the activities of setting up appointments, having appointments, getting, third-party validation calls happening, going through that exposure process. So the intention, the structure, and the time frame, and are those three things working together in a way that's aligned? So that would be the first check-in. So Sherry, do you have those pieces clear?
I'm as clear as mud. So
perfect.
There's that. So my intentions, coming back, I stepped away, saw a shiny object. I'm coming back. The best thing that happened while I was gone is I got to see how unshiny everything else was. And it has solidified my belief in EXP. It was like, before, I felt like I kind of accidentally came to EXP in a way because Rick was there and he helped me through a really hard time. And then it just seemed like it was all accidental. And I did not have the belief system behind knowing that this was actually a hugely productive tool and had all the tools that I needed. I'm very good at developing a plan, and then another plan, and then a plan on top of the plan. And never do I dig deeper than about a foot into it when I have to rebuild, because there's something in me that just starts over and starts over and starts over. So I have identified that as well, as that I need to now change my focus from starting over all the time to digging deeper all the time. And so what I've done with that is I'm working on my business plan and my procedure book, and making sure that I'm, getting the process in, rewatching the videos on recruiting, and making sure that I'm gonna follow the system instead of trying to reinvent the system.
Got it.
My time frame.
I'm gonna pause you for a second, because most of the people on the call don't know, or don't know actually what you're talking about. So Sherry was, what was it, almost 2 years you were with EXP?
Yes.
Yeah, so close to 2 years with EXP, and then called us, what was it, like 4 months ago, 5 months ago?
Yeah, it was the end of October.
End of October, and was like, I'm being offered this over here. It looks amazing. This is the direction that I want to go. And we firmly believe, and I think this is something for everybody just in a learning context, we firmly believe that everybody is on a divine path. And that at any moment in time, we're all getting exactly what we need, even if in the moment it doesn't really look like it. And then as we look back and connect the dots, it was like, oh, that's exactly what I needed at that moment in time. So when Sherry reached out to Rick and said, you know, here's what I'm being offered, this seems like it's so much more of a fit for me and, you know, where I want to go, Rick and I were like, you know, hopefully that's true. And in the event that all those, you know, those promises don't come true, there'll be a place for you, there's always a place for you here. And, you know, we love you as a human and want to see you get what you want, regardless of where that is. Right. So I think that there's a really important thing energetically when you talk about that business travels at the speed of trust. Business is really about the relationships and who you are as a person, because who you are as a person is the influence, right? So everybody, you know, at one point in time is going to get a bright, shiny object or multiple bright, shiny objects that come across their path. And it's in those times that we go, am I going to go with the bright, shiny object, or do I have a vision that's clear and an intention that's clear where I'm going to double down and refocus and take that as an indication that it's time to double down and focus? And which direction someone chooses is completely irrelevant, because it's always going to be perfect for that person, for that individual, right? So Will popped a question in, and I know Sherry, you're driving, so you might not have seen the question, but what was the bright, shiny object that you were being offered that had you decide, like, you know what, I'm going to leave EXP and go a different direction?
I was being offered the opportunity to open a new office as a team leader and also as a productivity coach. And coaching is something that I appreciate in my life. So both those occupations were dangled out in front of me, and it was like, you know, whichever one you fit best into, that's where you're going to be. And we've got this brand new office, and you know, you're going to help us immensely. And so in my profile, I'm a savior, if you would. I'm always, you know, running into the firefight. I'm a former law enforcement. So I'm like running in going, I will save this office. And I sacrificed myself in the process.
I love the acknowledgement and the awareness, right? So when we talk about everything drives somebody, like, this is what makes somebody a great recruiter. So if somebody knows that about Sherry and is like, hey, we're going to give you an opportunity to come save something, and it's, you know, aligned enough with what you value, like, obviously, like, that was a catalyst to go, you know, in a direction that was different than the one that she was in with EXP. So I think it's important to, like, know, okay, great. And then for whatever reason, like, that didn't happen the way that it was promised or set up. And so then, you know, comes the disappointment, the awareness, the like, oh, okay, great. And so now here you come back to EXP. However, it's really important at this phase that I always say that getting a foot in, like you described, and creating another plan or another strategy or another this or another that is really just avoidance. And it's easy to start anything. However, it is not easy to be a finisher. And sometimes we set goals and we set intentions that are about someone else's values or what someone else sees for us versus what's really important for us and what it is that we really want. And so I think that the first step is, like, regardless of what anyone else thinks, for what you think for you, getting clear on what do I want, why, and by when. And then one simple executable plan that does not get veered off track at all, no matter what else is coming up. And when it does, when those temptations come, it is being a leader of self and self-regulating and going, I'm in avoidance. I'm in avoidance. Okay, great. I'm in avoidance. So I'm not going to go down that track of creating a whole new plan and strategy because I realize that's an avoidance plan. I picked one that's viable, that's aligned with where I want to be by when, based on my values and my intention, and I'm going to dig into that plan. There is something, I was listening to somebody the other day that said the most successful people, and I'll send you this, Sherry, so you can listen to it. It's on being a finisher. And it was my my late mentor in my direct sales business that passed in January of this year, but he did an hour-long talk on being a finisher and how it's so easy to start. And in being a finisher, you've got to take the mundane and make the mundane sexy. Like, because in order to execute and create something really big, really significant, it's going to require doing the same thing day in and day out and day in and day out and day in and day out. And that's why so many people get distracted by the bright, shiny objects or go into avoidance and check out because they haven't created a relationship with the mundane things of the day in and day out. That is one that is connected to a bigger picture that has them stay the course. And so I'm happy to share that with anybody on this call. If that's something that you'd like, I think it's a really great tool and resource. Selena, we can pop it in Empire Builders Pro under the resources tab on the website. We've got a Google Drive that's got a bunch of different resources there. It's called Be a Finisher by Nathan Ricks. So I'll get that to you, Selena, and you can put it in there by the end of the day today. So Sherry, I would say start there, get clear on why you're here, what you want, by when, and then let's circle back and have an execution conversation and have the structure and strategy in place that's going to be one that you go execute and everything else you say no and don't even look at.
That sounds wonderful to me. I
Fabulous.
definitely-
And then one, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I definitely need the support that comes with this crew. I've missed this tremendously. This accountability, and the people that are here are amazing.
Yeah, well, we've missed you. Welcome back. We're happy to have you back. Okay, let's go into the next question. And I would love to open, I actually, because Will, you've done this at such a high level. I know Selena's done this as well. MC's question about how to inspire my former brokerage approaching C21 franchise re-update with ideas to help solve their significant decline in productive agents to inspire them to explore joining EXP. I would love to hear from our community on that one before I plug in.
You know, it's interesting you say that. I literally just had a C21 agent. She's joining today. And it took about a week to get her on, but I literally have exposed her to a couple of our calls, and she's been so blown away that she's just like, oh my God, what was I doing before, right? Because we're talking about AI, automation, ChatGPT, and at Century 21, she says all they're trying to do is get her to come to the office and make cold calls. So I think it's just awareness of where they are at that moment and just bringing them into the future and just kind of seeing what they're missing, because over there, if you can't get to the office, they can't impress upon you their value proposition, which is we're going to Mike Ferry you to death. And we're not doing that. So, and most people aren't able to make that. So I think just bringing them along to a lot of the stuff that we're doing in the group will set off an alarm, and that might be enough to open them up to the opportunity.
Thanks, Will.
Yeah, I would agree. There's definitely a mentality that's sort of pulling them back, not forward in what's happening. I coach some folks that are in the same in that brokerage. Very interesting dynamic happening there. And people who are looking for other ways to grow, staying in the same brokerage, but looking for ways to get their growth on their own. Just because there's not a mentality about accepting new technology, kind of, even Zoom meetings aren't being done as much. Obviously they had to do it during COVID, but it's really is about coming back into the office and trying to, do it that way, and not just exactly what you said, Will. It was more about cold calls, not letting them focus on their own sphere of influence and having that kind of conversations. Very, very interesting. It's almost like taking a step back in time. Very, very unusual situation.
So it reminds me of what Glenn Stanford said at the Maui Mastermind about the real estate industry and other approaches from brokerages is dinosaurs teaching dinosaurs how to be better dinosaurs. I love that. He's like,
That's
you know,
pretty
real
cute.
estate and companies are out there teaching dinosaurs teaching dinosaurs how to be better dinosaurs. And so, you guys both bring up something great, which is about changing the conversation. It's a different, like, have a different conversation than anyone else is having in the market, and things shift. And that said, one of the things that you said, MC, was that was not that one. That was Erica's. That was the next question. But it rolls into Erica's. How do I share all that we have to offer without EXPing over them? You don't. You never share all that we have to offer. You find out what is going to be most compelling to them based on what you get to know about them and where they're at in their business and their life. And then you share the one thing that's going to be most compelling that we have to offer for them based on where they're at and where they're not in their business. So that takes, that is I call it a fact find. And like, I want to know as much as somebody is willing to share with me about their life and their business to know where they're actually at. And as I'm doing that, I'm not offering any solutions at all. And even after I do that, I'm not offering a solution. I do it more in the form of a question. Like, it sounds like one of the things that you mentioned that's really important to you is, or, of all the things that you shared, what's the most important to you or most relevant for you this year? Okay, let them answer the question of what that is. If I could show you how to do that in a way that you haven't been able to do yet, is that a conversation you'd want to have? Well, yes, it is. And so it's not about the everything, it's about the one thing that's going to be most effective with that person. And that's where the building the conversation and the relationship and really getting to know people is, versus throwing eggs up against the wall to see which one hopefully is going to stick and not run all the way down to the ground.
All right, perfect. So I'm on the right track then, it seems like, because I'm at least trying to find out their top three is what Brent and I have been coaching back and forth between. And then I just probably need to go deeper and figure out what's the most important at that moment.
Yeah, and why those three things?
Right.
So if you go back to what drives voids and values, like whatever someone in someone's highest value is usually driven by a void, right? Which is why they have it as one of the things that they want to improve, right? So if you go back to whatever area of someone's life they don't empower, they're going to become overpowered in. I'm going to say that again. Whatever area of your life you don't empower, you'll be overpowered. You don't take care of your health. Great. Your health is going to run your life and going to run you into the ground. You don't take care of money. Great. You'll work every day for money and you will never not go to bed not thinking about it if you don't empower that area of your life. Like whatever area of your life you don't empower, you'll get overpowered in. So a lot of times when people are like, oh, these are the things that I want to work on, you need to really understand what is the void that's behind it, that's driving it. And sometimes it's those things, and sometimes it ends up not being those things when people get really honest about it. And except for most people aren't willing to go deeper into find out what is that actual void that's driving that goal or that value. And is it deep enough? Is it painful enough to even have them do anything different? Or are they just like smoking some kind of hope dope in woo-woo land and saying that, right? So the person's like, oh, I'm going to get in a fitness competition this year. I'm going to be in a fitness competition. And you're like, great. Tell me about how you're sleeping. Oh, 5 to 7 hours a night, all over the place. Oh, tell me about your, like, when's your food curfew? Oh, it's 10 o'clock at night. What are you eating at 10 o'clock at night? Bonbons. All right. Like, I don't even know why you have the goal that you have, right? Because clearly you're living in an illusion and some kind of fantasy. So let's take that one off. That's not actually happening. Tell me about the other ones, right? And so when you can get to the heart of what's actually true for someone and what's driving them, to the depth that you get to that void and really understanding that void for them, and then you communicate to them from that place, that is, that's where the magic happens, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Can I
Yeah,
chime
you're
in with
welcome.
that too, Casey?
Yeah, good. Chime in, Will.
So
I love
Casey told me there's 3 things, right, that motivate people, and the quicker you can find that out, the quicker you can move the conversation forward. So those 3 things are going to be money, recognition, and service. I knew after talking to Cindy that money motivated her, so she got it instantly, and that was the switch, right? So I think just finding out what motivates the person that you're attracting is going to push that conversation forward faster.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and sometimes it's painting a dismal picture. Like if Will and Cindy are having that conversation and Will identifies that money is a motivator for Cindy, like he could take her into a deep dark hole and say, Cindy, you know, what'd you create last year in transactions and income? Fantastic. Like, did you do that in 10 hours a week, 15 hours a week? She's like, no, I'm freaking exhausted. It took over my life. Oh, fantastic. Can you imagine living that same year for another 10 years to be in the same spot of what you already created this last year? Oh my goodness. That is like, take the knife in and turn it, right? Well, Cindy, how are you going to create more income without, you know, without adding more hours to create it? And you're already fried. Like how are you doing that? And those kind of questions, which is what I call finding someone's pain and sticking your finger right in it. The more painful you make the void, the greater vacuum it creates on the other side when you present a solution, except for most people won't take the time. They'll be like, oh yeah, you worked really hard and you want to get your business to the next level, but you don't know how to do that because of time. And then they're on a surface level and now they're like, well, let me show you how you can do that over here without like getting deeper into making it a painful situation. Like if you can make it a painful situation through the questions that you ask, to where you have heightened that pain to like, they're going to like crawl out of their skin or walk through a wall to change it when you offer them a way to change it. That is the thing that most people don't take the time to do because they're too excited to jump to how they're going to solve this person's problems with EXP. And when you like really take someone down that track of that void and make that void deeper and deeper and bigger and more ominous and more powerful, now it's just like, that is where you create the attraction energy. That's where you create the pull energy when you do offer a solution and help them piece that together, the solution step by step. So, I mean, this is the fun part when you run across people that love recruiting. Like I love recruiting. I love recruiting because Will loves recruiting. Yes. I mean, like, look at his face. It's like, it is amazing to dig into those kind of meaningful conversations with someone and just know like, hey, I'm like outside of myself right now. This is not about EXP. I'm so deep into this vortex and this void in their life. Like I'm feeling terrible, but I'm going to keep asking these terribly painful questions to make the pain even more painful. Like what, like, let's like play this out. Like, what is this? How does this movie end if you stay on this track? Right. And somebody that's really, when you're looking at attraction and recruiting and you make that about the other person, not about you, that is what making it about the other person is, right? It's not what do I have to come to the table and all this stuff I have to bring them. It is how do I connect with them at a deep enough level in the actuality of where they're at. And maybe they don't even realize where they're actually at. Because nobody's willing to have that confrontive of a conversation or something that could be that disruptive of a conversation for someone that's like, that's kind of confrontive for someone. If I say to Cindy, like, oh, great, like 2 years from now, what are you like in a hospital bed? Because you've taken all the same energy, you've done the same amount of business, and now you've just like zonked your body another 2 years. How's that going to be? What kind of mom showing up for her kids?
It's uncomfortable for me to ask, but I ask it, like, especially with this C21 agent, I asked her, so how's that worked out for you the last 2 years? And it hurt me to ask it, but she got it. And she said everything. It hasn't, it's not, this is not what I want for myself. And then boom, she was wide open.
Yeah. So Will, you do something that I do as well, which is in my mind, I'm like, I'm an ambassador for the other person's dreams. So Will, when you call me on the phone and it doesn't matter like what's going on, I'm an ambassador for your dreams. It don't matter how, deep in quicksand you might feel that day. It's like, I'm holding the vision. I'm standing in the space. I'm going to walk through that with you. And I don't care how dark or ugly it gets. Like we'll go together. And I'm going to be here on the other side because I see the other side, right? And that's what makes people that end up creating something amazing here amazing, because it's a selfless way to serve other people and go places that most people in their life are not willing to go with them, right? It's so much more comfortable to live in a lie, to live in an illusion, to justify and to rationalize, to stay married to the pain of what we do know versus the pain of what we don't, which could actually create, you know, a whole nother possibility for us in our lives. And so it doesn't, you know, if you show up as somebody that is willing to be that for someone else, that in itself will leave a mark like no other. Will, I know we've had a lot. I want to make sure just to circle back, you were looking specifically to walk away from today with a nugget to share and inspire others to take advantage of the opportunity. What did you collect from everybody's shares
You know,
today?
I think it's just, I just need to keep inviting them to these conversations. You know, I sent this out to everybody. We have Crystal here. I sent this to everybody on my org. We have Crystal here, but I'll have you on Monday, and I'll just keep pushing it out to them because I think people just need to hear something. They just, you know, I don't know, like for me, I'm easily excitable, you know, and I'm just hoping to impart something else. Again, I recommend it, guys. You got to get you a Cindy. Like I got Cindy in my group and she's motivated, you know, the same way I am. So I can tell her a few things and boom, off she goes. You know, I'm looking to do that same with another few people.
I'm going to close us out with that thought is don't go for low hanging fruit, the people that you can influence that just because they're influenceable. I'm going to say that again. Don't go for low hanging fruit, the people you can influence just because they're influenceable. Go for people that you would really actually want to work with, that you would really actually want to create something with. Then when you think about having a conversation with them, you're energized versus like, oh my God, I got to like either put a little shield around myself so I don't get my energy sucked dry and vampired, or, you know, we all know like, oh yeah, I recruited 3 people. However, every time I see their text come through or the phone ring, I'm like, oh my gosh, I just don't want to talk to that person right now because I know it's going to be drama or pity party or stuck, or I'm going to need to talk them off the ledge, right? So like be intentional around what you want to create as much as who you want to create it with, right? Because when you align with people that are versions of you that, you know, God forbid they have a bigger vision than you, and it makes you step the freak up to keep up with them. And they're like, three-way call. I need to talk to someone else and someone else and someone else. And you got to step up you got to step up your game to match energy for energy with them. That's the greatest thing ever. Yet a lot of people will recruit low hanging fruit because they can and go, oh, I got 1 or I got 2 or I got 3. But what does that actually mean if you're looking at what revenue share can produce and create when you have a productive, leadership minded, internally motivated person and organization? Like be intentional around what you want to see and what you want to create there. And then, yes, that's going to require some uncomfortableness of having conversations with people of that caliber. People who would actually flourish and create something amazing here versus people who you think need what we have, right? The people that need to be, you know, saved or rescued or coddled along versus people that are a match for growing and creating something amazing. So thank you each and every one of you for who you are, for being on the call today, for your participation and collaboration. And we, on our next call, which will be the first of the month, we have another incredible guest lined up. I think you're going to be super inspired by her and her story. And she has not been interviewed on this call ever. So it'll be a first, and we'll make sure and get some great promotion out around that so that everyone that wants to has the opportunity to plug into that. Outside of that, make it a great day, everyone. And thank you for who you be. We love you.